And our third finalist, please. Your name, please.
David Edwards.
Occupation.
Teacher.
In the first round, you took the life and work of Michael Faraday. In the semi-final, you took the life and work of Benjamin Thompson, Count Rumford. What is your chosen specialised subject this time?
It's a new subject, the life and work of James Clerk Maxwell.
Mr. Edwards, you have 2 minutes on the life and works of James Clerk Maxwell, starting now. What was Maxwell's nickname at the Edinburgh Academy because of his country clothes and unsophisticated manners?
Dafty.
Correct. Maxwell's first scientific paper was published when he was 14. What was it about?
Oval curves.
Correct. Who was the artist who has left us a series of sketches and watercolours of Maxwell's boyhood?
Jemima Wedderburn.
Correct. Who was the clergyman and classical scholar who was co-author of the first biography of Maxwell?
Campbell.
Correct. Why did Maxwell, after being admitted to Peterhouse College at Cambridge, transfer to Trinity College?
Give him more chance of getting a fellowship.
Correct. Which subject was set in the 1855 Adams Essay Prize, won by Maxwell with mathematical calculations which were proved correct by spacecraft in the 1980s?
Saturn's rings.
Correct. Who was the leading Christian socialist whose ideals influenced Maxwell when he was a young don at Cambridge?
Morris.
Correct. What children's toy did Maxwell adapt to demonstrate his three-colour theory of colour vision?
The Zoetrope.
No, the spinning top. Which physicist spent 30 years developing Maxwell's gas theory and thus founded statistical mechanics?
Boltzmann.
Correct. For which reference book did Maxwell act as a scientific editor and contributor in the 1870s?
Britannica.
Correct. Where was the last academic post that Maxwell held before he became Professor of Experimental Physics at Cambridge?
King's London.
Correct. Maxwell had to plan the Cavendish Laboratory in 1871, but who paid for it?
The Duke of Devonshire.
Correct. What formula did Maxwell often use as a pseudonym in scientific correspondence and when writing comic verse?
DPDT.
Correct. What new device was the subject of the Reed Lecture which Maxwell gave in the Cambridge Senate House in 1878?
The telephone.
Correct. Who was Maxwell's successful rival for the Edinburgh Chair of Natural Philosophy in 1860?
Tate.
Correct. What was the title of Maxwell's small book on a great subject which was published in 1876?
Pass.
What was the subject matter of the first ever colour photo which Maxwell demonstrated in 1861?
Tartan ribbon.
Correct. In 1868, for what post at St Andrews University did Maxwell apply but fail to get?
Principal.
Correct. What was the brief title of the paper Maxwell wrote in 1868, which is nowadays considered the foundation of the science of cybernetics?
On governors.
Correct. What was the recently invented scientific device that Maxwell demonstrated to Queen Victoria in 1876? And you may answer.
Crookes radiometer.
Is correct. At the end of that round, Mr. Edwards, you have scored 18 points. You passed on one. The title of Maxwell's small book on a great subject, which was published in 1876, was Matter and Motion. David Edwards, thank you very much. And our fourth finalist, please. Your name, please.
Paul Webwood.
Occupation.
Civil servant.
In the first round, you took the history of the British Labour Party since 1900. In the semi-final, you took Oliver Cromwell. What is your chosen subject this time?
Back to the history of the British Labour Party from 1900.
Mr. Webwood, you have 2 minutes on the history of the British Labour Party from 1900 starting. Now, which prominent member of the ILP became Labour's first Chancellor of the Exchequer in 1924?
Snowden.
Correct. In 1976, which MP was defeated by Michael Foot in the deputy leadership election?
Shirley Williams.
Correct. In the 1983 leadership contest, who was principal challenger to Roy Hattersley as deputy leader?
Michael Meacher.
Correct. In 1900, in which London building was a meeting held which agreed to found a distinct Labour group in Parliament?
A memorial hall.
Correct. Which former party chairman succeeded Henderson in Lloyd George's war cabinet in 1917?
Barnes.
Correct. In 1981, where was the special party conference held which decided on the electoral college system?
Wembley.
Correct. Who was narrowly defeated by Ramsay MacDonald in the contest for party leadership of 1922?
Clines.
Correct. In 1924, who was the Scottish communist against whom the Labour Attorney General dropped charges of incitement to mutiny?
J.R. Campbell.
Correct. Whom did Attlee succeed as Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster in 1930?
Mosley.
Correct. Which TUC's General Secretary in the 1930s was a union spokesman at meetings that determined party policy?
Citrine.
Correct. Which trade unionist urged the 1935 party conference to support the government if it backed the League of Nations action over Abyssinia?
Bevin.
Correct. In 1939, what decision by the party executive did Stafford Cripps unsuccessfully challenge at the Southport Party Conference?
His expulsion.
Correct. Labour won its greatest number of seats in 1945, but in which general election did the party poll its highest number of votes?
1951.
Correct. In 1951, who was Minister of Health when Aneurin Bevan resigned as Minister of Labour over prescription charges?
Hilary Markand.
Correct. Whose private member's bill in 1964 led to the abolition of the death penalty?
Sidney Silverman.
Correct. Which Labour MP for Lincoln resigned in 1972, later winning the by-election as a Democratic Labour candidate?
Dick Taverne.
Correct. Who was General Secretary in 1980 when party headquarters moved to Walworth Road?
Ron Hayward.
Correct. Which London constituency, gained in a 1986 by-election, reverted to the Conservatives in the 87 general election?
Fulham.
Correct. Who preceded and succeeded George Brown as Foreign Secretary?
Michael Stewart.
Is correct. In 1900, who joined, I've started, so I'll finish. In 1900, who joined Keir Hardie as the first LRC candidate returned by an English constituency?
Richard Bell.
Richard Bell is right. At the end of that round, Mr. Webwood, you have scored 20 points and no passes. And our final finalist, please. Your name, please.
Chantal Thompson,
Occupation.
trainee solicitor.
In the first round, you took the life and works of James Elroy Flecker. In the semi-final, you took the life and career of Montrose in the 17th century. What is your chosen specialized subject this time?
A new subject, the life and works of Marcus Tullius Cicero.
Ms. Thompson, you have 2 minutes on the life and works of Marcus Tullius Cicero, starting now. Which great Roman poet describes Cicero as the most eloquent of the descendants of Romulus?
Catullus.
Correct. In a letter to Asia in 62, to whom did Cicero offer his association both in politics and in private friendship?
Pompey.
Correct. In which city in western Sicily did Cicero serve as quaestor in 75?
Lilybaeum.
Correct. Who was the great orator that Cicero claimed in the Pro Cluentio never published his speeches?
Hortensius.
No, it was Marcus Antonius. Whom was Cicero wittily defending in 63 that made Cato remark, "What a comic we have for a consul"?
Pass.
The financial affairs of which city in Cyprus led to ill feeling between Cicero and Brutus in 51?
Salamis.
Correct. What were the wild animals in Cilicia that Caelius Rufus pestered Cicero as governor to send him for his show?
Panthers.
Correct. In which of the Philippics does Cicero quote copiously from a letter of Antony sent to Hirtius and Octavian?
The second.
No, the 13th. Which informer implicated Cicero in an alleged plot led by Curio to murder Pompey in autumn 59?
Vettius.
Correct. What was the promise of the oracle that inspired Lentulus Sura to revolutionary designs in 63?
3 Cornelii to rule Rome.
Correct. Which pamphlet by Cicero provoked an angry response from Caesar?
The Cato.
Correct. Which tribune of 62, until suspended by the Senate, prevented Cicero from delivering his valedictory speech as consul?
Metellus Celer.
No, it was Metellus Nepos. What religious distinction did Cicero achieve to his great delight in 53?
Pontifex.
No, he
Augur.
was an augur. I'm sorry, I can't accept it. On whom did Cicero claim in a letter to Atticus that his hopes of winning the consulship chiefly depended?
Pass.
Which distinguished ancestor of Clodia, who was censor in 312 BC, does Cicero invoke against her in the Pro Caelio?
Appius Claudius.
Is correct. To whom did Cicero dedicate his philosophical work, the De Officiis?
To his son.
Correct. Who was the king accused of plotting to kill Caesar, whom Cicero defended in Caesar's own house?
Deiotarus.
Correct. Which consul of 57 was active from the first in promoting Cicero's recall from exile?
Pass.
Of whom did Cicero say in 60 that he made... I've started, so I'll finish. Of whom did Cicero say in 60 that he made speeches as if he were living in Plato's Republic?
Cato.
The younger is right. And at the end of that round, Chantal Thompson, you have scored 12 points. You passed on 3. The person whom Cicero was wittily defending in 63, occasioning Cato to remark, "What a comic we have for a consul," was Lucius Murena. On whom did Cicero claim in a letter to Atticus that his hopes of winning the consulship chiefly depended? The answer was Domitius Ahenobarbus. And the consul of 57, who was active from the first in promoting Cicero's recall from exile, was...
Spinther.
Yes, Lentulus Spinther. You always know it afterwards, don't you? Well, thank you very much, Chantal Thompson. and recall at the right moment is what it's all about. Well, that brings us to the end of a fast and furious first round of specialized subjects. Let us glance at the scores. And in 5th place on 12 points is Chantal Thompson. In 4th place on 15 points is Brian Bibby.